And now, your host, the voice of the hard rock and metal community, Eddie Trunk.
I tell people I love Sirius XM's Faction Talk.
All right, we're back. Let's return to the year 1984. A year many of us wish we could return to. Elon Musk is working on that. Don't worry. We'll have the time machine soon enough. All right, let's go back in to the phones and hear from you guys as we continue your top 5 albums from the landmark year of 1984. Joey in the Bronx is our first caller today. What's up, Joe?
Hey, Eddie, I'm sitting in my Bronco dying to be part of this. 84 is, if not, definitely like the most important year of my life regarding music and everything. I wanted to ask you, do you remember Crazy Eddie? You're from Jersey. Remember the commercial?
Of course.
Crazy Eddie's insane? Yeah.
Well, was that in 84? Was Crazy Eddie's in existence in 84?
Yes. Yep. Because I used to go to Fordham Road and get the Wiz and Crazy Eddie. And Crazy Eddie was the electronic shop, and then I would get my records, which some of them I'm going to read to you. I would get it right there on Fordham Road in the Bronx.
Yeah, we should tell people, because I don't think Crazy Eddie was a national chain. It was more a New York, New Jersey thing, but it was an electronics store. And the guy would run commercials constantly on TV in the New York market, and it was this guy. It was the guy, Crazy Eddie. The tagline at the end is you would see him and he'd pop up on the screen. He'd be like, "Crazy Eddie, our prices are insane!" Yeah. That was like the big thing, man. That's a great memory. I totally remember that. And then that turned into Tops. I don't know about in New York, but in New Jersey, most of the Crazy Eddies became an appliance store, electronic store called Tops, and they all went out of business too.
Yeah, people can go on YouTube and see the commercials for Crazy Eddie.
It's not the 4th of July, it's not Thanksgiving, it's not even Christmas. It's better than all those. It's Crazy Eddie Day. You'll save money like never before during Crazy Eddie's Crazy Eddie Day sale with the guaranteed lowest prices on anything and everything in home entertainment. Shop around, get the lowest sale prices you can find, then go to Crazy Eddie and he'll beat them. It's Crazy Eddie Day. Save big, big, big bucks during Crazy Eddie's Crazy Eddie Day sale. Crazy Eddie, his prices are insane. Thanks a lot.
You know, they went out of business for fraud, but he used to hang off his helmet with the glue. Remember, you'd hang upside down. It's insane. He'd be glued with the helmet off of buildings and stuff. It was crazy.
Yes, that's true. I forgot about that. That's great. Yeah. And there was some scandal too. You're right. Should be a documentary on that guy. I do remember that.
Like Action Park, but it was before Action Park.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
But 84 is a big year for me, Eddie. Not only for first of all, I feel like for music, it was a massive, almost it collided with MTV. That's where MTV, like you had mentioned yesterday about Motley Crue. Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, came out in 83, but really 84, in my opinion, that's where they broke with those videos like Too Young to Fall in Love and Looks That Kill. 84 broke Motley Crue just by these crazy demonic videos alone. It changed everything. The VCRs came out, so you could record MTV and Radio 1990. So 84 was a massive year. In the Bronx, we had the Whitestone Cineplex, Ghostbusters, Gremlins, Karate Kid, Terminator, Spinal Tap, 84, everything,
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, those are great memories, Joey, for sure. So what's your 5 records?
Yeah, so my 5 records was number 5. The first concert I ever went to was Chicago, so Chicago 17. And that's with You're the Inspiration. The video Stay the Night, remember the car with Peter Cetera in the car crashing with the chick. Number 4, yeah.
Good.
Number 4, Steve Perry. Number 4, Street Talk with Oh Sherry and Foolish Night and all of that. Number 3, Don Henley, Building the Perfect Beast with Boys of Summer. All She Wants to Do Is Dance. He's a drummer. I'm a drummer. Love Don Henley. Number 2, Striper, Yellow and Black Attack. Robert Sweet on drums, Sideways. Can't beat that, man. And You know, I was going to say Van Halen, 1984, Drop Dead Legs and everything, but now that you bring up Rat out of the cellar, Rat and the EP, that, you know, I remember that I played that tape till it ran, till it couldn't play anymore, and I got another one. Probably right there by Crazy Eddie's. So, actually, I'm going to substitute Van Halen for Rat out of the cellar. The fucking album is just perfect. It's a classic.
All right, Joey, thank you for all that. I appreciate that. Joey coming from a different place on those first ones because we didn't hear anything. He's the only guy to bring up stuff like Chicago and Don Henley, which, again, was big then. And the other thing that Joey talked about, which I didn't really put that together, but MTV obviously didn't start in 84. I think it started in 82, 80. Joe, look up the year MTV went on the air. I think it was 82. Because, yeah, they covered the US Festival, and that was in 83. So MTV launched in, like, 81 or 82, probably.
August 1st, 1981.
81. Okay, so the thing about that is that by 84, MTV was a juggernaut. When MTV first launched, the first year or two, it was not widely distributed. It was not in everybody's homes. I mean, I remember as a kid, I would drive to my friend's house a couple towns over because he had it and I didn't, and we just sit there and watch the videos. But by 84, they were everywhere and they were a juggernaut, which also probably plays into 84 being such a big year for music because MTV really took over then. And everybody had it, and it was everywhere. And then the other thing that Joey brings up, which is really interesting, is the DVR, not DVRs, of course, this was long before DVRs, the VCRs. Because VCRs at that time were then very common, and everybody had them. The earliest VCRs were like a luxury item. They were huge, they were clunky. I remember my friend had one of the first VCRs that looked like a giant suitcase and had like physical buttons for the channels on the front, and it was like archaic. But by around 84, VCRs were in everyone's homes, and that was important because you could record this stuff and watch it when you wanted. And I would routinely tape hours of MTV, and then I'd fast forward through the commercials and fast forward through any videos that weren't rock. But in 84, MTV was still predominantly a rock outlet. You know, there's that legendary interview with Mark Goodman where he's talking to, I think, David Bowie on MTV, and Bowie gives him shit because MTV didn't have any diversity in the programming. But you have a emergence of a lot of different things. MTV being a powerhouse, people having VCRs, electronics being more prominently featured in people's homes, and then, of course, all this great music dovetailing off of it, and even stereo systems getting bigger. Staying in New York City, here's John in Queens.
You got to check out the Crazy Eddie documentary. You never seen that?
No. What, is that on YouTube?
Oh, it might be on Tubi now. Man, let me tell you, that guy was a shyster and a half. You got to check it out. I think somewhere. Yeah, I think I seen it on Netflix. I think it came out like almost 20 years ago. I think like early 2000s.
I may have seen it. What was his name? His name was Eddie. What was his real name? Eddie something.
Eddie Antar.
Antar, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, he always would wear like a black turtleneck and screaming into the TV. Yeah, of course.
He was the mastermind behind the biggest retail fraud in U.S. history.
He was very, very sharp. He was very, very shrewd.
And used techniques investigators had never seen before.
He had more fires and floods than the Bible.
He had ingenious tricks in order to defraud investors.
He was such a larger-than-life Brooklyn Fonz that he fooled Wall Street into thinking that they were fooling him.
And vanished with hundreds of millions of dollars. Find out how he did it. Next on Masterminds. Wall Street, the epicenter of high finance. The place where private businesses raise millions to expand their operations. In 1984, investment firms fought to take a chain of electronics stores called Crazy Eddie public.
It was one of the hottest IPOs in Wall Street history, and the stock went up like a rocket.
The stock went public at $8 a share. Split adjusted, it went to an equivalent of $80 a share.
Investors scrambled for a piece of the company that had revolutionized the electronics business.
Crazy Eddie was the father of the retail electronics chains. They didn't exist prior to Crazy Eddie stores.
Instead of selling home electronics in stuffy department stores, Crazy Eddie used the capital it raised to offer discounted merchandise in a party atmosphere.
Hold on to your beanies. Crazy Eddie's coming to Princeton.
And created the most relentless ad campaign New York had ever seen.
It's Crazy Eddie's greatest TV and video sale ever.
Between this visionary promotion and the great deals in the stores, Crazy Eddie became a household name.
Get anything and everything in TV and video. Get it now during Crazy Eddie's greatest TV and video sale ever.
They were the electronics store. That was where you went to get your great deal.
Crazy Eddie had better name recognition than Coca-Cola.
The chain crushed the competition. Its market dominance became unstoppable.
Come again, Crazy Eddie's! Crazy Eddie's! Thank you, sir!
Go get the best price you can find, and then come to Crazy Eddie's and we'll beat it.
Crazy Eddie expanded at a phenomenal rate. What began as a single outlet in Brooklyn had by 1987 grown into a vast empire of 39 superstores that employed more than 2,000 people.
At the zenith, the company was the largest electronics retailer in the tri-state area.
The insatiable appetite for Crazy Eddie's deals drove the stock price ever higher.
Its eventual market capitalization at its peak was over $600 million.
But what nobody knew was
insane.
The Crazy Eddie empire was a massive fraud.
Crazy Eddie brought this company public to defraud the public. There's no doubt in my mind at all.
The company's founder, Eddie Antar, had done a lot more than just cook the books. He employed an amazing array of techniques never seen before and lined his pockets with over $200 million in cash. The question is, how did he do it? Eddie Antar is the mastermind behind the Crazy Eddie empire and the greatest retail fraud in American history. Antar was born into a tight-knit family of merchants from low-rent Brooklyn.
Eddie learned literally on his father's knee to be a swindler.
His father and some of their other family members routinely would take home cash from his discount retailing business and basically divvy it up among themselves.
But Eddie's dreams are bigger. By his early teens, he's hawking cheap consumer goods obtained through shady connections. He's barely 20 when he marries his high school sweetheart, Debbie Rosen, and opens his first Crazy Eddie store.
Eddie had the ambition, the drive, the vision of making the big time. You see, Eddie didn't want to be a neighborhood guy. He wanted to be world famous.
Eddie was a great salesman, but better than that, he was very, very sharp. He was very, very shrewd.
He was pretty much considered the early master of the bait and switch. He'd get a customer in and trying to buy a $99 piece of merchandise, and he'd sell them for $4.99.
He said, people want hope and dreams. We'll sell them hope and dreams.
Right from the start, he skims money.
There was a culture that said the tax man does not deserve to have any of our money. Eddie would skim off all of the cash sales of the business so they wouldn't have to report those as taxable income.
Eddie then hires trusted family members and pays them off the books to further avoid taxes and scrutiny. Crazy Eddie thrives. But manufacturers start withholding stock because Eddie sells below their list price. Faced with empty shelves, he fights back.
Eddie said, I don't care if I have to get the goods out of Canada or Europe or Africa.
He survives by sidestepping manufacturers and obtaining merchandise through family connections to the underground market.
He broke their hold on the price fixing, and that was his claim that he was the champion of the New York electronics consumer.
Eddie also uses these underground connections for cornering the market on the next big thing.
He knew the Walkman was a winner. He had shiploads of Walkmans on the water. By the time other people were looking to buy them, and you couldn't buy them in quantity.
Eddie now opens 2 new stores and hires close relatives as managers, allowing skimming to continue and reaping hundreds of thousands of dollars. But to Eddie, this is small change. He sets about to increase his take by millions.
If you're a retailer, the biggest single asset you usually have is inventory. And so if you can falsely claim inventory that you don't have, that boosts your assets.
Eddie bought used and damaged merchandise and sold it as new. That used television is now in a heat-sealed plastic bag. It looks fine.
Eddie also commits extensive insurance fraud.
Eddie had more fires and floods than the Bible.
He convinces insurance adjusters that stacks of empty boxes contain damaged merchandise and collects hundreds of thousands of dollars on phony claims. But with his business expanding, Antar knows he risks becoming the target of surprise visits from financial auditors.
Now, when the auditor wanted to go out and see the inventory, okay, what do? Our count sheets show us that X, our inventory is at Y. We have a problem.
His solution is to plant a spy inside the company that audits Crazy Eddie. He sends his cousin Sam to accounting school for an all-expenses-paid education.
That brought great loyalty to Eddie. And when Eddie would say jump, I would say how high.
So Sammy went off to college, got an accounting degree, went to work for the CPA firm that actually audited Crazy Eddie's, learned how audits were conducted so that he would know where the holes were.
With Sam placed on the inside, Eddie's confidence grows. By 1978, Eddie and his family are skimming $1 for every 5 they bring in, reaping millions.
The skimming was handled now as just as a division within the company. It became institutionalized within the company.
But Eddie is running out of places to hide his cash.
There's millions in safe deposit boxes, in the bedrooms, in the houses. There's millions in the ceilings.
He solves that problem by taking monthly trips to Tel Aviv and depositing his money in numerous secret bank accounts.
I've seen deposit slips of $1 million at a time. I've seen bank balances totaling over $6 million.
As his illegal profits skyrocket, Eddie employs his wife and family as couriers. They transport over $11 million to his Tel Aviv accounts. While they do the dirty work, Eddie dreams of greater glory.
He's looking to be a star, and he's not a star yet. Donald Trump is bigger than him. So do you make it? You go public.
He saw taking the company public as his brass ring.
You can do much better with phony income in a public company than you can in a private company because other people are buying your stock.
But before Antar can approach Wall Street, his company must first undergo a thorough financial audit. He calls on his spy, Sam, who arranges for an inexperienced auditor to be assigned the job. The naive rookie is greeted at the front of the store. At the back, Antar's staff piles up masses of inventory shipped over from other stores. Antar shows the auditor an example of the merchandise he has come to tally. Then a helpful employee is sent up to count the stacks.
She would call down 70 large screen TVs. And if you looked at that row as the auditor from the ground, you could count 70 boxes. You could see how many there were across and how many there were down.
But the entire stack is little more than a facade. The auditor dutifully records the inflated numbers he is given. Antar goes further when he distracts the auditor and alters his inventory tallies right on the count sheets.
He would take every one and make it a 4 or a 7, and then give them back their altered papers. And so where they had written down 10, it was now either 40 or 70.
Even better, the files give Eddie crucial information about the next stores the auditor plans to visit and the sample counts he intends to take.
So that night, they had these poor guys loading up the truck again and driving to store B. And they just kept a step ahead of the auditors in doing that.
The auditor paints a portrait of a thriving company. Eddie Antar is now ready to strike. Armed with 13 apparently successful stores, he sits down to seal the deal with Wall Street.
Here were the investment professionals, the Wall Street sharks, thinking they were cleaning up these dumb Brooklyn street guys. And the supposedly dumb Brooklyn street guys are playing them. He was such a larger-than-life Brooklyn Fonz that he fooled the crooks on Wall Street into thinking that they were fooling him.
With the money he rakes in going public, Antar opens 26 new stores in under 3 years and quietly cashes out $40 million worth of his own shares. At the annual Crazy Eddie shareholder meeting, he is greeted like a rock star.
Eddie came and did the Rocky, hands over his head, and the crowd started chanting, Eddie, Eddie, Eddie. And at that moment, Eddie Antar was as happy as he ever was in his entire life.
But what Eddie doesn't realize is the magnitude of his success threatens to bring his vast empire crashing down.
Hold on to your beanies. Crazy Eddie's coming to Princeton, New Jersey with his greatest minority frat party ever. Crazy Eddie's coming to 2100 Route 38 in the Cherry Hill Shopping Center. Crazy Eddie's coming to 150 Broadway, corner of Liberty Street, Manhattan. Be there.
Crazy Eddie Antar, the darling of Wall Street, is using the 39 stores in his 3-state empire to line his pockets with millions.
Crazy Eddie's, thank you.
Insane.
But now, he's got a problem.
You have to feed the beast more each year. It's one thing to tell the auditors on the ground there's 70 TVs, but he can't tell them there's 7,000.
They weren't making money, they were losing it. And so this has a cumulative effect. If you lose money in 1 year, then you essentially have to double down every year, and the fraud has to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
The stress starts wreaking havoc in his family life. Antar fights with his wife Debbie and takes up with a mistress, also called Debbie.
It was like trading in your car. Besides the same name, they looked very similar, except that Debbie 2 was the younger, sleeker version.
On New Year's Eve 1984, Antar's wife catches him cheating with Debbie 2 when she is led right up to his car by Antar's sister. The incident causes a rift in the Antar clan.
And that eventually led to the downfall of the family.
You have to make the mafia comparison. They are united in their joint effort to make as much money as they can. And if they turn on one another, the game's over.
With his family life in tatters, Eddie's business problems now worsen.
The gap between what they were taking in and what they were called on to report by virtue of the fraud they had committed was becoming just unbridgeable.
The discovery of this kind of fraud was inevitable, and Sam E. knew it and feared it.
Eddie acts quickly, cashing out another $30 million of stock before the price crashes.
And people said, that doesn't sound very encouraging. The founder, the namesake of the company, is reducing his position. And so people started looking, and they found discrepancies. When they found discrepancies, they started talking to the SEC.
New faces and new hands came in there, and new eyes. It was no longer this tight, inner-knit circle that he could control, but there were people there that he could not control, and it wouldn't take long for it to unravel.
A business rival soon moves in and buys Crazy Eddie in a hostile takeover bid. But Antar has the last laugh. The new owner quickly discovers the inventory fraud, a staggering $80 million worth of non-existent merchandise.
It was basically a hollowed-out shell by that time, and that it had largely been looted by Eddie.
Before police can arrest Eddie on a racketeering charge, he flees to Israel, armed with 6 passports and access to his stolen millions. Sam is left holding the bag.
And I said, fine, if I'm on my own, I'm on my own. And I decided to come clean.
With the knowledge gained from Sam, authorities launch an international manhunt for Antar, whose new life on the run is not working out the way he had hoped.
You have to think of how big his need was to be noticed, to be admired, to get attention, all of which is completely inconsistent with going underground. There's no flashy sports cars, there's no flashy women. He couldn't live that way.
Authorities get their break 2 years later, when Eddie, needing money, comes to Geneva and attempts to withdraw funds from one of his secret accounts. To his surprise, he learns that the account has been frozen.
I think there was about $40 million in that account. And Eddie evidently was not happy that it was frozen.
Eddie's attempts to recover the money fail. He leaves empty-handed. But the Swiss contact American law enforcement, who trace his steps back to Israel.
He was caught when he left the apartment and he started driving, and they had a female police officer who was wearing a micro mini dress and no underwear and bent over the hood of the car, exposing herself, knowing Eddie couldn't resist. He stopped, he got out, he patted her on the ass, said, "That's a great ass," and she said, you're under arrest, and handcuffed him.
Jailed in Israel, Eddie Antar loses his fight to avoid extradition and is sent back to America to face justice. Eventually, Antar admits to 17 counts of fraud. He owes $150 million in fines and restitution, and close to $1 billion in civil lawsuits. He goes to prison for 8 years.
We hurt investors. We hurt creditors. We hurt consumers that might have lost their refunds. We hurt the people that work for us that lost their jobs. There are countless other people who got hurt directly or indirectly from the frauds that we committed.
You have to think of it as the Sephardic Jewish Goodfellas.
There were a pack of thieves. The whole family was a pack of thieves. And there's no honor among thieves.
Eddie could have been an extremely successful businessman who could have gone on to even bigger things.
Eddie was like a force of nature, but like a tornado, when it was over, there was nothing but wreckage left.